Hi guys, and welcome back to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and today we're diving into one of Netflix's latest true crime movies, Sweet Bobby. Now, Sweet Bobby is based on a real-life catfishing case that spanned over a decade. It's honestly one of those stories that the more you learn, the more you can't believe it's actually true. So buckle up, because this is one wild ride. Let's break down the editing, direction, as well as the moral questions this documentary raises. Sweet Bobby tells the story of Kirat Assi, a British radio presenter who was catfished for nearly 10 years by someone close to her, which is the shocking part. The sheer length and complexity of the deception here is mind-blowing. I won't spoil all the details of those who haven't seen it, but let's just say this isn't your typical fake online romance kind of story. This person manipulated Kirat's entire family, involving fake illnesses, deaths, and life-changing moments. Imagine your entire world being crafted by someone else without you knowing it for years. As the story unfolds, it starts feeling like a slow burn thriller, except it's a true story. Each layer of deception feels crazier than the last, and by the time you hit the end, you'll be questioning how something like this could go on for so long. The fact that Sweet Bobby is still going on, yes, even now, just adds another layer of tension. Netflix kind of leaves us hanging in a way here because the full resolution is not entirely clear, and that plays into the idea that the truth is still being unraveled. So talking about the direction and tone, the direction by Latanya Shannon is solid. She does a great job at balancing a personal side story of Kirat's emotional trauma, her relationships, and the impact this had on her. With the sheer mechanics of the catfishing, it's a complex story to balance. There are moments where you're like, wait, what just happened? And that's partly because Shannon knows exactly when to drop bombshells. She paces it so that you're always being pulled deeper into the rabbit hole. The problem here is that even though the story is 10 years in the making, there is not a lot of story told here. Some of this movie feels repetitive as we go over some of the same escalating issues with more social media screen grabs. There is even a disclaimer that this movie has. It states, some online identities have been replaced with actors to protect the privacy of people involved. So this in turn gives the director an excuse to jump over or omit certain things because, well, frankly, they just don't know them yet because, again, it's still ongoing. Thankfully, this is just a one and done though, and doesn't have multiple episodes like some documentaries do on Netflix, kind of stretching it out. Although I definitely still felt the time in this one and done film. Okay, so let me counteract the negative with a positive. What I found fascinating about the tone is that it almost has this understated, airy calm. It doesn't go overboard with dramatics. Instead, it lets the facts speak for themselves, which makes the whole thing even more unsettling. There's this everyday normalcy in the beginning, but by the end you realize how utterly terrifying the manipulation was. The music and editing choices reflect the slow creeping dread. The editing complements the tension, allowing us to stay with Krat as she discovers the scope of her deception. And when we're talking about the editing choices that build the tension and structure, the editing is sharp. It cuts between real interviews, voice notes, and reenactments, but it does so in a way that doesn't feel jarring. We get audio recordings of real conversations integrated so well that you feel like a fly on the wall, experiencing some of it firsthand. The slow reveal of key information really helps to build the suspense. You start piecing things together just as Kirat does, and the documentary respects the process. No jumping ahead, no rushing the big reveals. The pacing allows the story to breathe, even if it takes a little while long to get there sometimes, and sometimes it's likely a repetitive emotional journey. However, towards the end, the documentary almost stops itself from having a truly climactic resolution, which brings me to the bigger issue with Netflix docs in general, the anti-climactic problem in Netflix's docs. Now, this is something that we've been seeing a lot lately with Netflix's true crime series and documentaries. There's this ongoing dilemma where Netflix chooses stories that are fascinating, but don't necessarily have a tidy, satisfying ending. In Sweet Bobby, the anticlimactic feeling creeps in. You're left with so many questions because the case isn't fully resolved yet. Legal actions are still at play as of recording this review, and we don't get that clear, dramatic closure. The truth is ongoing, and while it's real life, it might leave some viewers feeling that the story just fizzles out rather than hitting a big conclusion. This also feeds into a broader discussion about the truth-telling in documentaries. The truth in these stories are often subjective, especially when the cases are still developing. We're getting a version of the truth, but we're also aware that it might not be the whole truth, at least not yet. In Sweet Bobby, we're seeing Karat's side of the story, and while it's compelling, we know there are still loose ends to this story. Netflix loves these unfinished business types of stories lately, but I wonder if they're doing that at the cost of a truly gripping ending. So when we talk about the themes in this documentary, trust, manipulation, and trauma are all right there. One of the strongest themes running through Sweet Bobby is trust, or rather, the shattering of trust. Karat's story forces us to question how easily trust can be manipulated, especially in this digital age. It's not just about online deception, it's about how people control your reality from the shadows without you even suspecting it. There's also a powerful theme about trauma. Karat is left completely devastated, not just by the emotional betrayal, by the fact that lies shaped her whole life for so long. The trauma here is accurate, and you feel the weight of it through the interviews with her. This isn't just some, oh, I was fooled online situation. This was years of her life, years of mental manipulation. And there is the stark truth that in the UK, what was done to Karat is not against the law. The documentary does well to explore the psychological impact of this, not just on Karat, but everyone involved. It shows how easy it is for someone to fall victim to a web of lies when spun so intricately for so long. So my final thoughts are this. Sweet Bobby is worth watching. Yes, if you're into true crime stories that deep dive into the complexities of human relationships and deception, absolutely, go for it. Just be prepared for the fact that the story doesn't tie up with a neat bow. It's ongoing, and that's partly a frustration, but also adds some intrigue. It's not the most fast-paced documentary ever, but the slower, more methodical unraveling of the truth is what makes it haunting at times. The editing, direction, and tone work in harmony to create a sense of creeping unease. You won't get all the answers you're hoping for, but that's often how real-life stories go. Sometimes. I give Sweet Bobby a Catfish nightmare 2.75 Nicolas Cages out of 5.
And you got one.
Let me know in the comments what you thought about this short, sweet documentary. Did Sweet Bobby leave you wanting more? Have you heard of the podcast? Or were you satisfied with the story as it stands? Thanks for watching, and remember, until next time, live long and Tuesday.